Welcome back to the Lumi Post, where we talk about all things Pokemon, and today we're going to be talking about the biggest questions we have from the Sinnoh region. Now, we have previously done our biggest questions from the Hisui region, and obviously that is Sinnoh just in the past, but what we're doing here is we're diversifying it. In that video, we covered things solely from the game Pokemon Legends Arceus, and in this video, we will only be covering things that pop up in Pokemon Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, Pearl Diamond, or Platinum. But without further ado, let's get into the biggest thing that I think is probably on this list. Maybe, it's definitely a top one, at least for me. And that is this church that you see in Hearthome City. When you get to Hearthome City, there's many things to do there. You can make poffins, you can walk around with your Pokemon in Amity Square, you can do contests, you can go to the gym. But there's also this weird church, and it's kind of just, that's it. Like, you go in there, you can talk to the pastor and the people in the congregation. You don't really get any items or anything. You don't learn anything crazy about Pokemon lore. Like, if this was a Church of Arceus, I could make sense of that. Like, and they're talking about, oh, there's this god Pokemon. I can make sense of that. Like, that's its purpose. But there's none of that. So what's the purpose of this thing? I remember as a kid playing Diamond and Pearl, this was kind of one of those things that, like, people on the internet would exploit and use as, like, a way to trick younger people like myself who were playing Pokemon at the time. You know, your classic, you use strength on the truck and you get Mew under it. This church was so obscure, but seemed like it should be something, that I remember seeing something about, like, if you go in there, you can, like, get the Arceus flute, the Azure flute, by doing this and then doing that, and just all kinds of craziness, especially when that flute event ended up being scrapped and they just gave out an Arceus instead. So it was a whole can of worms, and I just really want to know what's the deal with it, and if it will ever get some kind of love. Now, given that we just revisited Sinnoh, and it got some extra love in getting Legends Arceus for the Hisui region, we probably won't get this answered anytime soon, but, fingers crossed that when we get our next Sinnoh remakes in 2059, we will find out what the heck this is. Now, another question I have is what the history is behind the old chateau in Eterna Forest. Now, there's a lot of theories around this, like involving Gardenia, and some people think that there was maybe a fire because you can find a burned heel in the trash can. All kinds of different theories, but nothing concrete. We don't have any official word on what happened here. And given that it's home to a lot of ghost Pokemon and also actual ghost people, I assume that there is some kind of dark history here, like, because typically in Pokemon and, also in the real world, if you believe in ghosts, haunted places, I put that in quotes for those who don't believe in them, typically come about from a tragic thing, right? Like, you don't usually hear of ghosts haunting a house that died peacefully. Usually it's some kind of brutal murder, So I imagine there is some kind of dark history to make the old chateau, this beautiful mansion, get run down and no one's claiming it, no one's upkeeping it. I imagine there's got to be something bad there, but we do not know what that is. And then my other question is, we go there to get Old Gateau, which is, of course, the kind of specialty item from Sinnoh. Every region's got its little dessert item. Sinnoh's is the Old Gateau, and you get it from the old chateau. Who is making this? Because are we just going into an abandoned mansion and just walking into their kitchen being like, oh, snacks, because I don't want to pretend to be an expert. I am no doctor, but I feel like that's really unsanitary. But yeah, anyways, lots of questions about the old chateau. And speaking of haunted or spooky places, we have the Harbor Inn over in Canalave City. This is how you get Darkrai in Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl. You go in here and the man will be like, oh, we've been waiting for you. You'll go to sleep and you'll wake up on Darkrai's Island where you'll be able to catch him. Well, this still doesn't really give us much, because then you come out and they're like, hey, that place is abandoned. You were in there for a really long time. And there's, for one, how long were we in there? But for 2, also, like, what's the deal here? You know, how does this connect to Darkrai? It's just kind of a way we get Darkrai, and so we've all kind of accepted it, but it's never really explained, right? And then another spooky happening in Sinnoh that definitely isn't as big as the Old Chateau or the Harbor Inn is up near Snow Point City. There is a woman who will give you a spell tag, and she disappears. Now, this seems to be very heavily influenced by folklore in Japan, specifically around a yokai that Frostlass actually draws inspiration from. But, again, no concrete answers, and it's just, you know, it's a spooky thing, and it is still mysterious. I will say, though, there's some things that I think should be left a mystery. This is one of them, because I like that it's kind of up to your interpretation of, was this just some kind of weird event, or was that a ghost? Heading back on over to Canalave City, another thing there are lots of theories about, but still no concrete answers, is the books that you see in the Canalave Library. There are ones talking about how humans used to marry Pokemon, which we actually do kind of see in Legends Arceus. There's also some stuff tied to Manaphy in there with the Legends Arceus quest, but there's even some other stuff that people speculate might be related to Hisui and Zoroark. There's all kinds of different things in there, and it's all very mysterious, and I'd love to dive more into this lore and find out what this is all coming from and what, if anything, these books are in reference to, because again, everything we have on these are, unfortunately, just theories. Now, as a kid, one thing I got really, really frustrated with as I was playing through Pokemon Diamond and Pearl is the odd keystone. You know, you get this item, but you can't get Spiritomb unless you encounter 999 people in the underground, and, you know, I'm a kid, I don't really know how to do all of that, so I never got my Spiritomb in Diamond and Pearl. I didn't get my Spiritomb until, I think probably Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, or maybe the Friend Safari and X and Y. So it was disappointing to me, but I also just kind of want to know why they made this so difficult. I mean, this is harder to get than some legendary Pokemon. Now, of course, it's been made a lot easier in future games like Paldea, you know, in Scarlet and Violet. You can just find a wild Spiritomb on Glaciato Mountain. You know, the Oris quest is a lot easier. And even in Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, the remakes of Diamond and Pearl, they kind of put some NPCs in the underground so that it would be a lot easier to find Spiritomb. And with the advancements of, you know, the internet and Pokemon's connectivity to it, it just got a lot easier. But again, why was it so hard in Diamond and Pearl? Because it was genuinely harder to get than any other legendary in the game, and Spiritomb's not even a legendary, so what the heck? I feel like Sinnoh's full of these kinds of Pokemon where it's like they're treated almost like they're legendaries, but they're not legendaries. You know, Spiritomb, Rotom, one could even make the argument for Lucario, but I'd love to just know what the story is behind this tower and get full lore in it. Honestly, I'd love a Legends Spiritomb game. I know it's not a legendary Pokemon, but they're treating it like one, so my interest in it is like it is one. And lastly, and probably objectively the biggest, is there's still a lot of questions behind Sinnoh and its connections to Sinjoh and Johto. And personally, in my opinion, without a proper visit to the Sinjoh region, I don't think that we will be able to really get the this question fully answered. And yes, we did visit the Sinjoh ruins, but I mean being able to really go to all of Sinjoh, not just this one part with ruins, and really get some more answers. You know, it's interesting that the Sinnoh and Johto regions are so heavily tied together. Obviously, they are close in proximity, so that does make sense there, but still, it's just very interesting, and it's kind of nice that Sinnoh was the first game to really give us some, like, lore to the Pokemon world and, like, make us go, okay, there were people that traveled up from Johto through Sinjoh to the Sinnoh region. And, you know, this is even backed up by Legends Arceus saying that, you know, Commander Kamado may have come from the Lake of Rage, as he talks about how a Pokemon destroyed his village. So it's nice that they give us that lore, but man, it makes me thirst for more of it. I don't want little tiny glimpses. I want the full story of everything that happened between these two regions, as well as the mysterious region of Sinjoh. But yeah, be sure to let me know what are some questions that you have about the Sinnoh region, as well as maybe your own answers to these questions that I've proposed in this video today. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss all of our future videos. And until next time, I will see all of you later.